Our speaker today is Dr. Scott Burns, Professor Emeritus of Engineering and Geology at Portland State, where he's taught for over 32 years. His bachelor's and master's from Stanford, a PhD from the University of Colorado. He's talked to us several times about geology, specifically as it applies to the Northwest. He's been married for 47 years. 2 children and several grandchildren. So with that, help me welcome Dr. Scott Burns.
This is so much fun to be here to talk to you today. I'm sorry Tony Lineweber isn't here. He's recovering from COVID. He's the person who actually invited me to come and speak. And this is my second most favorite Rotary club in the world. I'm a member of the Downtown Club. I was president in the past. My dad was president of that one. My grandfather was in it. And my grandfather helped establish this club. Back in the 1940s in Rotary, you could only have one member from a business in a Rotary club. And my dad and my uncle started the very first truck stop in the Northwest called Burns Brothers, which was just right down the road here. And my dad was in the Downtown Club, and as a result, my uncle also wanted to join the Downtown Club. He couldn't. So 6 guys in the Downtown Club who had sons who wanted to join, but they had too many sons, they formed this club. And so my uncle was one of the charter members back in those days. And so it is a special place for me. Now, I'm excited, and maybe if you can pull it up on the screen so we know, to talk about geology of the national parks here in the Pacific Northwest. I retired 8 years ago from Portland State, but the only thing I retired was my paycheck because I love teaching. And I teach a course every spring called Geology of the National Parks. And it's my fun geology class. And one of our greatest heritages that we have in the United States is our National Park Service. And my aim is to get everybody out to visit all of the national parks that we have got. Now we have 6 of them here in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm going to focus on 5 of those. I'm not going to talk about Redwood National Park, and not enough time. But in case I look around here and I see a few hair colors like mine, Portland State has a deal. If you're 65 years old and retired, you can take classes for free at Portland State. They're called senior adult auditors. And normally in my class, it's about 110 students. Half of them are senior adult auditors taking the class for free. They laugh at my jokes. They understand them. They understand my music because I introduce every one of the lectures with a song of the day. When we're having a sand dune park, we have Peter, Paul, and Mary blowing in the wind. When we have a park that has earthquakes, whole lot of shaking going on by Elvis or Carole King, When the Earth Moves Under My Feet, or if it's a volcano park, Jimmy Buffett, when the volcano blows. But let's come back to the Pacific Northwest. And I put, at the beginning, I have Mount Rainier. The first day of class, I always tell my students, what is the closest national park to Portland? And nobody gets it right. It's Mount Rainier, 2 hours and 15 minutes to the Nisqually entrance. A lot of people say Mount Hood. No, it's not a national park. Then they say, well, how about Crater Lake? No, 5 hours away. How about Mount St. Helens? No, it's a national monument. Nobody ever guesses Mount Rainier, and I think it is one of the most beautiful and exciting parks that we have got.
How close is the Olympic?
Huh? Actually, to the official entry, it is 4, and I'll talk about that and show that. So, so what I'm going to do is hopefully get you excited to get out and see some of these national parks. And the national parks have been in the news recently because of Yellowstone shutting down. If you remember back when the beginning of the Rose Festival was, we had rainfall nonstop, 2 inches in one day. That was what we call a atmospheric river that came in from the Central Pacific. It just continued over there, and that's what soaked Yellowstone, melted a lot of snow, and then caused a lot of erosion at the northern part. So let's see did I do it right? Yeah, okay. So there is a delay, isn't it?
We're good.
Okay, well, we'll work with it. So here is a map of the Pacific Northwest. And the geology is controlled by a chain of volcanoes off of the coast. And let's see, is this a laser pointer?
Maybe.
Well, we won't worry about it, okay? Off the 200 miles off the coast, we have a chain of volcanoes, creating the Juan de Fuca plate and then a Gorda plate down below. So those plates are converging with North America. They're being subducted under North America and coming back to the surface of the chain of volcanoes, all the way from Mount Lassen down in California, all the way up to Mount Garibaldi in British Columbia. And so they have created our environments. And so everything that we have, all of our national parks, go back to the fact that we have this situation. It also creates the very, very large earthquakes. And I give a huge amount of talks on the big one and trying to get everybody prepared for that. And one of the talks that I've given in the past to this club has been that. So we're going to start out with our closest national park, Mount Rainier. And the first three parks I'm going to talk about are 10 of the oldest parks in the National Park Service. Mount Rainier was the 5th national park after Yellowstone. And a number of visitors every year, it is number 18 with over, if you look at all the national parks. And so here is Mount Rainier, Reflection Lake, absolutely beautiful. A lot of the snow has melted. I was up there with my class about a month ago, and there was like 15 feet of snow around the visitor center, but most of it is melted off. This is Sunrise Lodge. Most Portlanders don't get a chance to see that because that is the first one coming down from Seattle. So most of the Seattleites, that's where they go. But absolutely beautiful picture that you have got up there. Here's a picture flying over the top of Mount Rainier, looking to the south. There's Mount Adams off to the left, and then Mount St. Helens off to the right-hand side over there. And if you're on a clear, beautiful day in downtown Seattle, right next to the Space Needle, you have got Mount Rainier. It dominates it. It is absolutely a beautiful mountain that is there. And to get there from here, you just go north on I-5, and then you just kind of cross over to Mount Morton, 2 hours and 15 minutes. And if you haven't been there, the best flowers are going to be out in about a month. And so we'll show you a couple pictures of that. And so here is a picture of the mountain. It is the mountain, the biggest mountain in the lower 48 states with more glaciers that you've got than any other one on one particular mountain. And you enter in the lower left-hand corner, the Squally entrance. Then you go through Longmire. Longmire is one of the visitor centers, and it's one of the original ones. It was a hot spring resort back in the 1880s and 1890s. And you can take a walk around the area there. The hot spring is now cold, but you can still see where the water came out. The major visitor center is the Scoop Jackson Visitor Center, which is in the lower central part there. In the wintertime, the whole thing going down, the road going down to the southeast entrance is closed. Why? Because of snow avalanches. But you'll get a chance to go down to Alhanapakash and the Valley of the Patriots and the unbelievably big trees. And then if you went north, then you would come up to Sunrise, which is up above. So here is the entrance. Oh, by the way, how many of you have been to Mount Rainier National Park? A couple. Oh, we got to increase that number. And I love the entrance with the old growth that you have got there. And then when you get up to the visitor center, there is a lodge. I'm a geologist. Geologists are always in the doghouse. And so I have to get out of it by taking my wife on romantic getaways. So I know every lodge in the Pacific Northwest and every bed and breakfast. And this is one of my favorites. Now, when I was up there a few months ago, I'll show you a picture of that. Inside, unbelievably beautiful and great dining room, Pacific Northwest cuisine that you have got. In the wintertime, it looks like this. And when I was up there last month, it was still covered by lots of snow. And it should be opening up probably at the end of this month. Lots of college kids will be waiting on you inside. Back in the 1930s, there was a golf course there. Now, they've taken all of the golf course and ski resorts out of the national parks, but that was what you would have seen in those days. If you fly over the top of it, it's got the old crater up there, which is exciting. And a lot of people love climbing the mountain. And if you do climb it, you generally start the day before. You climb up to Camp Muir, you camp the night, and then you do the last transect up there early the next day. If the weather turns on you, you've got these big caves up at the top, which is really nice to keep people from dying of exposure on the very top. But starting in a month from now, this will be all of the hiking trails along Paradise. That is the visitor center that is up there. That's where most Portlanders go, and incredible hiking. And Mary Longmire, her husband and her started that hot spring resort. She would take people on a buggy ride up there, and she named this Paradise because of all the beautiful flowers that you've got up there. And if you miss going up in the summertime, go in the fall because all of the vine maples are out and red, red, red everywhere. And it is absolutely beautiful. Or go down to the Grove of the Patriots. And this is down in the southeastern part of the park. And if you like hugging trees, big old beautiful trees, be sure to do that. One of my favorite places on this side is Narada Falls. And this is where a basalt flow came off of a small vent at the top. And so you got columnar jointed basalt, and you can hike down to the bottom of that in that particular area. And here's some of this columnar jointed basalt. Anytime you see these columns, and we got them all up and down the gorge, Mother Nature is shouting out to you, that's basalt. And it's a cooling phenomenon. The flow stopped, and then it's cooling from the top down and the bottom up. But flying over in the mountain towards the end of the year, you can see the differences. The gray colored glaciers, last year's snow was melted off. And then you can see the white, if it's white, it's still snow on there. And so this is, we have 36 named glaciers that are found on that particular mountain. And still climbers love climbing up some of the glaciers. It's a little more risky with some of these seracs that you've got in crevasses. If you hike from the Sunrise Visitor Center, the closest glacier is the Emmons Glacier, which is the biggest glacier that's coming off of there. But the one that is the most studied and the one that is closest to us is Nisqually. You can see that from Paradise. And this is the longest running scientific study of, how are the glaciers responding in North America. And this one here, in fact, if you are down on the bridge in 1865, I'll show you the picture of where the lower part is. We have followed it. And if a glacier snout is retreating, it's telling you that the climate is warming. If it is advancing, it is telling you that the climate is not. And so there are a lot of people out there that are climate deniers. They say the climate is not. Well, all you got to do is look at all the glaciers in the world. 85% of the glaciers in the world are retreating. It is telling us that the climate is warming. And then 10% are not changing, and 5 actually are growing, like the Taku Glacier out of Juneau. And that's because it's getting so much more snow because of the increased temperature of the local ocean that is found there. And so I always take my students, and this you can stop on the bridge going over the Nisqually Valley, looking up, and the glacier in 1865 was right there. Now it's way up around the corner. Also, a lot of that vegetation you see there is gone because in 2006 we had huge amounts of rainfall, big debris flows, wiped out all the vegetation in all the valleys. On the north side is the Carbon Glacier. It's it doesn't get much sunshine, and so it is the lowest glacier, 4,000 feet in elevation, or 3,350, and so it's a rarity. But there's so much ice on that mountain. It's also America's most dangerous volcano. Why? It's not because of volcanic eruptions and ash that we all remember from Mount St. Helens. It is debris flows. That is melting of snow and ice on the mountain and coming down and filling up the valleys. It's like a slurry. And you can see all the red areas. Those are all deposits discovered by geologists of these, what we call lahars. And here's Ording. See all the flat area down there? That is all stuff that came down 4,000 years ago. And if we have another eruption on the mountain, we are going to have huge amounts of slurry coming down, and all of those lowland areas are going to be in danger. Some beautiful just pictures of some of the lenticular clouds that are up there. I just thought I would throw that in. And here is what my students say on my field trip that I take every spring. There's a lot of snow at that time. All right, let's go to Crater Lake, our national park that we have here. That was park number 6, 1902, out of the 63 national parks that we have got. Now, number of visitors every year, we're number 28. So it's more remote, so we don't get as many of them. But the Crater Lake and the view that you've seen on every one of the calendars, and we'll take a look at that. Here is a map of how to get down there. You go down I-5 to Roseburg and come up. The road from Roseburg up to the park, one of the most beautiful roads in North America with all the trees. We had a big fire, so half of it is beautiful now. Or you can go down through Bend on the other side and like 4 to 5 hours. Most Portlanders come in from the north side, and so you've got the Pumice Desert, and then you have the circle, the road going around the crater. At the north side, that's where you can go and get a boat trip. And if you haven't, so first of all, how many of you have been to Crater Lake? I love it. And how many of you have been on the boat? Going, a few. And it is an unbelievably great way to see that. And they actually got geologists now on the boats talking about the geology, which makes me excited. And then down in the lower right-hand color, you'll see the pinnacles, which I think is a really beautiful area. And then Wizard Island that is out there in the middle. Wizard Island is a little cinder cone that came up right after the huge eruption that occurred in the past. And this is a picture taken back in 1874 by Peter Britt Jackson. And it publicized this. This was many of the newspapers coast to coast. And a guy named William Gladstone Steele was out living in Kansas. He said, I want to go to find this place. He came to Oregon, saw this, and moved to Portland. He became postmaster. He was on the city council. And he is the guy that single-handedly, first of all, he started the Mazamas, the famous mountain climbing club, and he used the Mazamas to actually lead the petition to get national park for Crater Lake. And he was the first superintendent of the park at that time. But this is what we call a caldera volcano, so explosive that all of the magma underneath it just completely goes up as ash, cinder, and lapilli, and the whole thing just collapses in. And that huge crater that is created is called the caldera that you have got. And so here is a painting that you will see up at the park of what the volcano used to look like over 12,000 feet in elevation. And then afterwards, this is what it looked like later. And then the deepest and the clearest lake in the United States is Crater Lake. And it is just unbelievably spectacular that we have got up there. Also, the lodge is absolutely wonderful. And if you get a chance to go up there and stay, I love staying there at sunset, out on the deck overlooking the lake with a bottle of Oregon Pinot Noir or an Oregon microbrew. Life doesn't get any better there. And if you take the water away, you can see Wizard Island, the little cinder cone there, but there's also Miriam Cone, which is another volcano that came in. The eruption, when it erupted, was 7,700 calendar years ago. And then about 7,000 years ago, that's when these other two volcanoes were created. And then if you look at the valleys that are coming off of the old one, they're U-shaped. Mother Nature is shouting out to you. That was occupied by glaciers that took a V-shaped valley and turned it into a U-shaped valley. And if you look at some of the outcrops up there, you can see the striations from the glaciers that came over that area in the past. Or, like many of my students do, they go up with cross-country skis and ski around the whole thing in the wintertime, and it is absolutely a fun type of thing. But I encourage you, get down there on the boat and travel around, stop at Wizard Island, and you'll have an absolutely great time. At the northern end is Llao Rock. And you can see that white layer down there, 7,700 years ago, it had an ash eruption. That was that white layer. And then it oozed out a whole bunch of very, very slow moving magma. And that formed Llao Rock. And then the explosive event occurred after that. The oldest rock that is there is down at the bottom. And these are called the pinnacles. And this is an old dike that intruded in there. And the boats generally go around there. Also, if you're on the boat, if you're at the top, you'll see everything just going in a big circle. But all of a sudden, you'll see a boat that will go way out of its way. It's looking for the old man of the lake. And this is a tree that fell in many years ago in 1925. And this is what it's like. And the boats will always know where it is and as it's floating around. And that's what you get to see. And if you see a boat deviating from its course, you know that it's doing that. But you see all of these huge, what we call dikes. These are veins of magma that intruded into the volcano in the past and are much more resistant than the surrounding rock that is there. And also on the eastern side, this is an outcrop that is highly weathered, and it is called the castle. And so fun things to see there. The amount of ash that came out from that eruption, incredible. It's found all over the Pacific Northwest. I had a grad student in 1992. He said, I want to do a study of the alpine soils and the Wallowas. And here we were over in the Wallowas. Our first soil pit that we dug down is about 4 inches of black soil. And then it was 3 inches of pure Mazama ash. It was incredible, all over the Pacific Northwest. The Pumice Desert, the northern part, incredible, not much vegetation after 7,700 years, just because of seedlings just do not take root there. But then if you go to the southeastern part, this whole valley was completely filled up with volcanic debris, pumice, ash, and lapilli and stuff like this. And then it is eroded away, leaving these big, huge pinnacles that are here. And those are where you had fumaroles, and you had steam vents that were coming up, and the water coming up would kind of cement all of the ash, etc. There. And so leaving that, those there. Now let's go down to Mount Lassen. And when I started teaching this class at Portland State, I'd never been to Lassen. I said, oh, this is kind of a boring park. Then my wife and I went down there. I love this park. And nobody, how many of you have been to Lassen? All right, we got 3 people. This is wonderful. It was park number 10. It had a volcanic eruption in 1914. National Geographic covered it and became a park. But number of visitors, number 37. Not even 500,000 people go there. And here is a picture of Mount Lassen and Lake Manzanita in front of it. And then Chaos Jumbles, which are off to the left-hand side. And there are the Chaos Jumbles, which, and this is all a volcanic rock that we call a dome. It is very, very silica rich and oozed out. And so it means that it is also very explosive. And you can see there's a big circular road on the left-hand side that you have got, starting from Lake Manzanita, because if you come from Portland, you generally come in the northwest part. And then you go around to the east part and then down through Bumpus Hill. I'm going to show you that, and then out the south side. That whole eastern part is all backpacking. If you love getting away, it's great. The bad news is 1/3 of that burned in the fires last year. And then there is a little cinder cone on the right-hand side, which is one of the youngest and the most perfectly formed cinder cone volcanoes in the United States. You have to go out of the park and then come in on the other side. But this eruption that occurred back in 1914, and it was a series of eruptions for the next 4 years, that led to the formation of this becoming a national park. And so this whole park is basically an old volcano. And then it all collapsed in, and so like it is a caldera, and so all of the remnants of the rim of that caldera are all of the peaks that are around here, and so this is the backside of Mount Lassen, and that in the 1914 eruptions came down, wiped out, burned out all of the vegetation, the forest that was there. It still has not come back over 100 years later. You can walk to the top. You don't have to be a climber to get up to the top of this. But all of these peaks that are around here, this is Mount Diller. I think the next one is Pinnacle Peak. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I've got to do this way, don't I? Pilot Peak, Pinnacle. All of these are remnants of that old caldera that occurred about 100,000 years ago. That they're there. And so these are all remnants of the volcanoes from the past. And so this is one of these I love as a geologist, because you have all different types of volcanoes that are created there, but also you've got these incredible trees, and then the glaciers came down. This is at the parking lot of Bumpus Hill, and that rock was carried down the hill by the glaciers in the past. And then you get into the eastern side, look at all the lakes that are out there. Nobody's out there backpacking. And it is absolutely beautiful. And the number 2 most famous geothermal area in the United States next to Yellowstone National Park is Bumpus Hill. There was a cowboy who would take people back there in the 1800s, and his name was Bumpus. And he basically fell through and scalded himself. And so it was hell for him after that. But you can see all of the fumaroles, and they now have platforms that you can walk around, so you won't go through what Bumpus went through. And But it is highly geothermal, highly active volcano, and absolutely wonderful to get a visit to. And that little cinder cone, I said, you go out of the park and come back in to the other side. Let's go do that. Perfect. It is wonderful. And you can just climb up to the top of that. And you can see some of the lava flows that came out at the end of that. There are also a whole bunch of sand dunes of the ash that came out of that volcano right at the end, and then all the different varying states of color that you've got. Oh, yes.
How tall is Mount Tahama?
Mount Tahama, probably, so that was Tehama, which it was the original volcano that was there, probably was 12 to 13,000 feet high. That's the one that became the caldera, collapsed. And you know your geology. That's good. All right, I did throw in Redwood National Park. I don't have a lot of pictures because the geology is exciting, but it's not for you. But people go there to see the redwoods. It goes way back 1968 when it became the park. But it's not only a national park, but then also you have all the state parks, and they were primarily put together to preserve the redwoods. And so it's a long. How many of you have been down to Redwood National? So most of you. And it is definitely a treasure that we have got. It's different from the mountain redwoods that we have up in Yosemite, and absolutely beautiful. But the coastline, nobody goes to the beach down there, and you can walk up and down the coast. And now it is also earthquake prone area. It's a triple junction where 3 different plates come together, and so that you can always, if you want an earthquake, there's always a chance that you will do that. But the tall trees are absolutely beautiful to go visit down there. And I don't need to show you. Oh, drive-through trees. I finally took my wife down a few years ago. She said, I want to go through the drive-through tree. I didn't know there are 5 drive-through trees. There's one at the northern end, which we went to, and there are 5 at the southern end. And nobody was there. So she drove through, and then I took a video of her, and then she went back. I'm going to do it again. She went back and forth 5 times. And she got into it. Let's go up to Olympic National Park. Which was park number 25, 1938. Why was it formed? To preserve the Roosevelt elk that were there. Now, the Roosevelt elk are everywhere in the Pacific Northwest. We've done a very good job of preserving them. But of all the 63 parks, it is the number 7th most visited, over 3 million people a year. And it is a park that is 3 parks in one. On the eastern side, the greenish area that you see there, those are the mountains. But then you have the coastal area, which is completely different. And then the west side of the park, that is a rainforest. And so you've got 3 different areas to go visit. And I love it. Geologically, it's just all scraped up bottom of the Juan de Fuca Plain. The black area is all the basalt that was at the bottom. And then the sediment on the top is the red area that you have got. And here's just a cross section showing you the formation of it. Very, very easy formation of this particular park. And as you're coming up from Port Angeles, you see this bumpy basalt. That is what we call it's basalt that has formed underneath water. And it's just one on top of another on top of another. And it shows us that was formed at the bottom of the ocean. Here are the early geologists. Geologists don't carry guns like this and bullet belts, but it took them, I think, 6 days to cross the Olympic Mountains back in the 1890s as they were plotting that whole area out. But here is Hurricane Ridge down at the bottom, looking down the valley off at Mount Olympus. The first guy that went up there said it looks like the Valley of the Gods, and that is Mount Olympus, and the name has stuck ever since that time. And if you went up there right now, this is what you would see, all the Alp lilies, because all the snow is completely melting out right now. And also, if you go out at the end of the day, deer come out of all the forests, and around Hurricane Ridge, there'll be lots and lots of them. Or you can go camping, and I love camping. And out in that middle part of the park, just hardly any people are out there in that area. Lots and lots of lakes. They're either formed by little glacial moraines or landslides that have occurred over the years and for them. And there's Mount Olympus off in the distance. And scenes like this are just absolutely beautiful. There is the top of Mount Olympus, almost the top of the mountain there. And a lot of mountain climbers love that. And so many glaciers, all of them are shrinking that you've got there. And here's another one on Mount Tom that we have got up there. But the pictures of the The mountains there, absolutely beautiful pictures. And give it another month and the lupins will be out, as will the paintbrush and the asters that you've got. The north side, you've got Storm King Mountain, which has had lots of landslides that have come down, dammed up that whole valley, creating Crescent Lake that you have got there. On there is also a great place to come and stay in one of these romantic getaway lodges at Crescent Lake. Also, as you continue west, the trail up to Marymere Falls is absolutely beautiful with the old growth trees, and then also the Marymere Falls at the end of it. And right next to that, then you got Soldock Hot Springs. And again, with little cabins, you can actually do hot springs resorts, and absolutely beautiful. This is at the north part. And then the west side, this would be a great week to go up there because it's not going to be raining, but this is the whole rainforest that you get, over 142 inches of rainfall a year. So most of the year, it is not the best place to go visit, but it is absolutely a beautiful place on the western side. This time of the year right now, rhododendrons are in bloom. So it is not a bad place. And then the other part that many people don't go to is the coastal area. A very, very rugged coastline, as you can see right here, all up and down the coast, and lots of shipwrecks you can see. Going up, parts of ships actually sticking out from those particular areas there. But I love that from Claylock on north. It is a beautiful, beautiful place to go. And some incredible formations of the Crescent Formation that are out there eroded away. And you can see the bedding is straight up and down instead of at an angle in this particular area here. And then Lake Quinault is a moraine dam lake down at the very southern part. I love going down there, and old growth forest, big, beautiful U-shaped valleys up next to it. There's another lodge that I've taken my wife to many times to get out of the doghouse, and the Lake Quinault Lodge, great food, and inside lots of fun, and great basalt fireplace that you got. The last one I just wanted to mention is one of the least visited national parks. That's North Cascades National Park. Anybody visited there? All right, none, because very few. Look at only 20,000 a year. Park number 33 is way up north. You go, and there are two major parks: the north section, the small south section, and then Lake Chelan, which maybe some of you have been up to, is it's not in the park, but it is monitored by them. To get up there, well, you go up to Mount Vernon and then take Highway 20 across. And there are a couple dams that have created right in the middle water reservoirs for power generation. I won't get into the geology of it, but it's very, very old rock that you've got there with. Yes.
Is that near Stehekin?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Stehekin is at Lake Chelan. I'll show you a picture of that here. And very old rocks here. So this is what we call gneiss. So metamorphic rock that is found here in this area, but it's a backpacking national park. And what you want to do is get that backpack and just go and look at the ruggedness of the area, and more glaciers that are found here than any other place in the lower 48 states. And these are just all melting at a very, very rapid rate. Here's the Challenger Glacier, which is one of the largest glaciers that is there in the park. But most of the people who go there do want to get away from it all and travel in. And here's Mount Redoubt, which is there. There are two big volcanoes on the edge of the park, which I'll show you. This is right in the middle. This is Diablo Lake, which is on the Skagit River. Look at the color of the water, turquoise. That tells you that all the sediment is coming out of glaciers that you have got up there. And lots of beautiful little lakes, waterfalls that you've got throughout the area. Absolutely beautiful. And then the geology up there, very, very old rocks, highly eroded away by glaciers in the past, and they're still doing that. Mount Shuksan is on the western edge, and it's a ski area. When I taught at Western Washington University, got a chance to go up there and ski. Here's the Nooksack River that it starts up there and goes down into the Puget Sound, and big, beautiful U-shaped valleys that are up. And again, you got a backpack to get photos like this. Lake Chelan is outside the park, and some of you have been there and gone on maybe the Maid of the Mist, which is the Lady of the Lake, which is the boat that goes up the up there. There are now 8 boats that go up to Stehekin, which is at the other end. There is Stehekin. And that is, and if you like wine, and I've talked to this group about wine and terroir, great wine growing area down there in Chelan that is there. And then when you get up to Stehekin, you get up to Rainbow Falls, which are absolutely beautiful. And that water is coming out of the lake from the melting of glaciers. Here is Mount Baker, which is just outside of the national park. And then just south of there, here is Glacier Peak. I venture to guess in the next 10, 15 years that they will be both brought into the national parks, because those are beautiful glaciers that need to have a certain amount of coverage. So hopefully this has gotten you excited about getting out to see some of the parks that you haven't gotten a chance to see. And here are my 3 kids. We're at the, my wife and 2 of my 3 kids at sunset at Crater Lake, looking off towards the west. And we, at least my wife and I, had a little bit of Pinot Noir afterwards. So thank you very much for the chance to come and talk to you, and hopefully you will get out and see them. Thank you.
Question. 1 minute for questions?
Okay, you said the Lake Chelan or Diabo, it was glacial water because it was turquoise colored. I've seen rivers that are milky. How is it that it changes to turquoise? Is it settling?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is, as the water comes out of a glacier, it is loaded with rock silt that is ground at the bottom of the glacier, and it's very, very murky. As it settles out, there's still a lot of particles in there, and it bends the light to the bluish greenish end of the spectrum. So anytime you see that light bluish turquoise color, Mother Nature is shouting out to you, glaciers there. One last
How deep is Crater Lake?
Oh, it's deep. You know, those are little facts that, you know, at the end of the day or the middle of the day, you can't remember. I can't remember what I did yesterday anyway. So, but it is the deepest. I do remember that, and the clearest lake in North America, which is very, very exciting.
4 digits deep.
Yeah, it's deep. Oh, what you do, just Google it or call Siri. Hey Siri, what is the depth of Crater Lake? All right, well, thank you very much for giving me a chance to come and talk to my second most favorite Rotary Club in the world.
Thank you.